Hello and welcome to the Daily Records Betting Show, your guide to beating the odds in the weekend football action. Huge focus obviously falls on Celtic against Rangers on Sunday, but sometimes the best value can be dug out away from the biggest spotlight, and that's the task for myself and Mark Walker this week. We'll take you through the entire Scottish Premiership card, dip down to Leagues 1 and 2 and the Championship as well in Scotland, and also pick out some choice selections down south in England. We're going to jump, however, straight away on to Sunday and firstly get our teeth into the Parkhead showdown. It was Jock Stein who famously said only a fool would contemplate predicting the correct score in an Old Firm game. Unfortunately for Mark, we're not going to ask him to do that. And besides, he's already selected three excellent value bets for the action in the Old Firm game at lunchtime on Sunday. So looking back to more recent form, that's where Mark's got his ideas from this week, and we'll let him take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all been about Celtic this week. The money's come for them. They're as short as 13 to 20, I think, to win. Rangers been on the drift all week. Punters aren't having them. And you can see why, because with Celtic, I've only lost once in the last dozen Old Firm games, and that was a meaningless game as well at the end of the season. It's very, very hard to look beyond a Celtic win. I think Rangers would bite a hand off for a point without a shadow of a doubt. Celtic just look levels above anything else in Scottish football. They won their games this season without coming out of second gear. They're cruising. They're probably going to be too strong for Rangers again on Sunday. Rangers will be a bit of confidence because of their good win last week over Ross County. They scored 6 past them, but this is a different kettle of fish, and obviously going to Parkhead with no fans as well. The last 3 games at Parkhead between the teams have been Celtic have won both teams to score, and I see no reason to jump off that again. For me, that's a call. I think there'll be goals there. I think Rangers are capable of scoring, but Celtic look too strong for them. So it's the obvious call for me is Celtic to win and both teams to score 74 with my bookie.
Yeah, with Celtic on the match odds are around about 8 to 13, 4 to 7. I see Rangers as big as 4 to 1. It seems like a good creative way to get with the champions in this match.
Yeah, well, I think they're too short to back. Unless you've got pots of money, they're too short to back just as a single. But they do look too strong. And an interesting point from last year, obviously, Celtic won 4 out of the 5 games last season. In the league games, they were ahead at half-time in every single one of them. So, again, if you're going to back Celtic to win, you'd be looking at them to back half-time, full-time. Because, as I said, they were ahead in the 4 games last season. So I would go for a half-time, full-time for Celtic, which is 23 to 20 with McBookie.
Yeah, I think Rangers have had some harrowing experiences at Celtic Park in the last few years, probably since I think it was October 2020 when Connor Goldson scored 2 goals at an empty Celtic Park in the COVID year, and since then I note the 2 games in 2022, I think there was a 3-0 and a 4-0, and goals then were scored in the 5th minute, in the 8th minute, the first, and Rangers just had stood no chance of recovering after that. And it's hard to see, given the current maybe confidence levels or issues with going to Celtic Park. It's hard to see, if that happens again, them being able to kind of recover. They've also, in the games you mentioned from last season, suffered from players getting red cards. It was John Lundstrom, Leon Balogun in the last 2-1 games. So, punters might want to look at maybe Rangers centre halves or other players struggling. I saw that John Souttar and John Souttar's actually 40 to 1 for a red card was a price that kind of stood out. He could be in for a tough day. But Mark, you prefer the thought of a Celtic player seeing at least a yellow from lucky old John Beaton, who's in the man in the middle on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think every punter loves to get stuck into the bookings market when it comes to the Old Firm, because there's going to be so many of them. But one of the ones you wouldn't really expect to get, there's obvious candidates who you'd be right up there getting your bookings and that, but one you wouldn't expect perhaps, because you wouldn't think he's that type of player, is Maeda at Celtic. Now, interestingly, in the last 3 Old Firm games, he's picked up a yellow card every time, which again, he's not really that type of player, but he does absolutely steam into challenges because he's so quick, and sometimes he mistimes them. So at the end of last season, he actually got 4 yellow cards in his last 6 games. One of them was for Japan as well. So he has got previous for Old Firm cards. He's a big price. He's 4-1 to be booked any time with Bet365. That's worth a wee. It's not an obvious one. It's a bit of value, so it's not a bad wee shout. That 4-1 for Maeda to be booked.
Great stuff. I had a little look at the kind of obvious ones of, excuse me, in first goal scorer. Adam Maeda 5-1, and Cyril Dessers is the best priced Rangers first goal scorer. He's as big as 9-1, but he's only managed to net once in his 5 starts against Celtic. So it's kind of a big game for him. I think it's following the kind of similar routine to Morelos of a few years ago, where he was scoring goals against maybe the lesser lights in the league, but not stepping up, and maybe needs a couple of Old Firm goals to really get him going and show that he can be a Rangers striker going forward. Celtic already around 1-4, 1-5 for the title, just on account of Rangers already dropping points and obviously playing a few games at Hampden. So they'll be considered home and hosed if they manage to get the 3 points, strangely enough, by the end of August already. And, even if that's the case, Mark, do you think there's any chance Rangers could continue to kind of keep it tight in the title race this season? Yeah,
I mean, it's obviously ridiculously early to be writing teams off at this stage, but clearly, there's it just doesn't seem right at Rangers. There's obviously off-field problems in that as well. Whereas Celtic just look like they've got stronger, they've got a bigger squad, they've obviously spent some money, the transfer deadline as well. They just look like they're better prepared. And certainly all the evidence that we've seen so far, you can't argue with the odds for the title. So a Celtic victory, but Rangers to at least hit the back of the net looks a good price. That's 7-4 with William Hill. It's going to be goals at Parkhead on Sunday afternoon. So it's back to the Saturday card. Let's go to the betting show darlings of the season so far. Dundee, who host St Mirren at 3:00. Dundee are 6-5. For this one, St Mirren round about 9-4, 12-5 to inflict the first defeat of the season on Tony Docherty's side. Dundee made it 31, I think, goals in just 8 games, with 2 against Hibs in their Easter Road draw last week, giving Mark his bet of the week up at 13-8. And what's not to like about a repeat, Mark? That's it. Again, Dundee are going terrifically well. They probably could have been out of sight at Easter Road last week, but they fair play to Hibs. They had a right go in the second half, and we got that injury time goal to bring the bet up. But I would go absolutely no reason to change from that bet and go again on Saturday against a St Mirren team who I think the effects of Europe seem to have really hampered them so far this season. They don't look the same team. They barely laid a glove in Celtic last week. Dundee have scored 2 in every game so far this season. They're 5-4 with Paddy Power to score 2 or more. Again, at Dens Park, I particularly seem to enjoy playing at Dens this season. They've scored, 18 goals actually in 4 games at Dens this season, so they love a goal there. Scored 2 against a St Mirren team that, as I say, they do look a bit lacking in confidence at the moment, so I think that's a good shout, so I'd be happy to take that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if St Mirren, perhaps for a week or two, maybe just suffer from the European exertions, as you say. I just want to throw in a word of caution for this one, because I've not seen a better keeper this season than the guy between the sticks for Stephen Robson's side this year, is Ellery Balcombe, who's on loan from Brentford. You've probably seen him as well. I watched the 1 or 2 European games and the one against Hibs, and I think he also probably kept the score down against Celtic last Sunday. I would have said if Dundee can get 2 or 3 against him, then they'll have done really well. So that's a really intriguing battle actually on the weekend. Is Dundee's free scoring side against a guy who I think could be one of the best goalies in the top flight this season, and certainly a guy who I think will save St Mirren points this season rather than cost them, which can be very crucial and perhaps a difference for them to make the top 6, and that could be something they're vying Dundee for long term over the course of the campaign. But yeah, Mark, you're right. I've been with Dundee this season so far, and like them in a couple of anti-post markets. So for me, it would be good if they could carry on their goal scoring streak. Down the road in Perth on Saturday, St Johnstone against Motherwell is another 3 o'clock kickoff. I saw all the games between these sides last season. 3 of them were draws. The first 3 were all draws, and each of them a comeback draw for Motherwell. St Johnstone letting the lead slip on each occasion, and then the final game of the season, St Johnstone went to Fir Park and won 2-1 in a crucial victory that kept their heads above the relegation playoff waters just on the last day. Now, St Johnstone have got no Adama Sidibe. He's suspended for 4 games now after his double red card against Dundee United. I would expect, for first goal scorer reasons, if guys are looking at that Nicky Clark would probably come into the reckoning to replace him and be up front with Benji Kimpioka. Liam Gordon is another angle. He's gone back, former St Johnstone centre-half and captain, going back to McDermott Park after leaving the club during the summer there after 9 years service. Just looking at the fixed odds for that, Mark, St Johnstone look to be edging towards maybe 2-1. They've been on the draft.
Yeah, I'm surprised. Is that not too big? Would you not say? I know obviously the suspension and that, but it does seem a bit too big for 2 teams that are very evenly matched.
Yeah, they are very evenly matched, and I think that's something that Craig Levein is clearly has actually been acknowledging in the last couple of days. There's not a lot between them, so perhaps a little bit of home advantage might throw it towards Saints. Having seen them in the last few weeks, I've got a nagging, funnily mentioning, just coming back off the back of mentioning the other Saints, I've got Ellery Balcom in goal. My big doubt about St Johnstone, from what I've seen so far this season, is at that very position, and it's a little bit worrying. Josh Ray needs to come through, having made a couple of early season errors. He did it in the Premier Sports Cup against Alloa. He did it against East Fife, spilling a shot that led to a goal. Also happened again last weekend at Dundee United. Got in a bit of a mess at a long throw, cost them a goal there. Didn't look too clever at Dundee United's first goal either. He's only 23. I know Craig Levein's been kind of looking at maybe trying to get a more experienced pair of hands in to challenge him. They've been operating without a goalkeeping coach for a couple of weeks as well, so all is not great in that department. I like the rest of the team. That would just be my nagging doubt about St Johnstone. Again, he's a good shot stopper in the main. I'm not going to go near St Johnstone for the moment until perhaps that situation is resolved, or hopefully Josh Ray picks it up and can prove he is a Premiership goalkeeper going forward with St Johnstone, and can keep Craig Levein's team away from any issues at the bottom of the table. So my pick to finish bottom of the table this season was Ross County. That was my bet in the anti-post markets. They host Aberdeen, very much on form, Aberdeen. Ross County trying to recover from a 6-0 thrashing at Rangers last weekend. Aberdeen on a run of 8 straight wins heading to Dingwall. It's been one-way traffic in the market for this game all week, with the Dons, I think, just about surviving at odds against. Ladbrokes are holding firm at that 21-20, I think. Should we be tempted, Mark, and why?
Yeah, I think you've got to be, and I certainly don't think that odds against will last. If you noticed last week, the price collapsed right up till kick-off, and they started very similar, started about 65. It's only going to go one way. Aberdeen are playing with full confidence. They go top of the league for 24 hours anyway if they can win. And Saturday night, even last season, they played County 5 times and beaten 4 times. Aberdeen, as we all know, were very poor last season, but still seem to have a bit of the Indian side against County. As I say, they are playing. They seem to have got, Jimmy Taylor seems to have got the guys playing with a lot of confidence. They look like they've got goals in the team. Interested to see if Kevin Nisbet will get a start this week, or whether he'll get brought on. I don't think it'll change much apart from that. They look in a good place at the moment. Of course, they've been benefited from a easy start to the season, as they say, but
Yeah.
That's nothing to do with Aberdeen, and the home games that they won against the likes of St Mirren and Kilmarnock, they would have probably lost both of them last season. So they've improved, come on leaps and bounds. As I said last week, no one's getting carried away. That'd be silly, but they're in a good position, must be brimming with confidence, and I think they'll go off about, could see them Saturday night going off about 4-6 or something. So yeah, take the 21-20 or evens while you can.
Great stuff. We'll snap up that now then as soon as we can. So Aberdeen, as you mentioned, had maybe a kind schedule to get them started, including playing the European teams, Kilmarnock, St Mirren, at home games after their exertions on Thursday nights. Let's turn our attention now to the two clubs that were involved in the action on Thursday. It's Hearts and Kilmarnock. So Stephen Naismith's side host Dundee United at Tynecastle. The Conference League representatives, Hearts, Naismith, the manager said things aren't quite clicking at the moment, saying that things sort of fizzled out again in the European game at home. Will this kind of form, kind of blunt nature of their performances up front? Will Lawrence Shanklin be fit enough to come back for this one? A lot of question marks over Hearts at the moment, and they're going against a Dundee United team that beat St Johnstone last week, and to go with their 2 draws already, so they're unbeaten in the league. Is this an opportunity, perhaps, Mark, for Dundee United to take advantage of their hosts' early season struggles?
Well, you'd certainly think so. I mean, it's just not in a good place at the moment at all for Hearts. The fans are starting to really turn against Stephen Naismith. You saw that the other night. You wonder what's going wrong. On paper they look like they've made a couple of good moves. They've added to their squad, but they just seem to be lacking everything across the pitch at the moment. Dundee United, they're not going to get a better chance, are they? They're going to go to a place like Tynecastle and win. I saw there's a bit of money for them this week as well.
Yeah.
They must fancy it. They really must. And they score the first goal or something, the plate will be toxic at Tynecastle, and that's exactly what they'll be aiming to do. Add to the doubts and see what they can bring, because I think they've Hearts. This is a massive game for Stephen Naismith, being no doubt about that.
Yeah, if Dundee United do get the first goal, that could well be a troubling dynamic for the home team. For this game, actually, I quite fancied a first goal scorer bet. There's one that stood out an absolute mile to me. It's for David Babunski. They're one of their summer signings, North Macedonian. Now, this guy's already got 3 goals in his 7 appearances. So I'm rather baffled by the price of 22-1 with Bet365 for first goal scorer for Babunski. He's looked a really lively, cracking player. He's not had any problem settling into Scotland at all. It looks as if it suits him. He's been in many different leagues. I think the guy's got more stamps in his passport than you, Mark, actually. He's played in Japan and about 4 or 5 other leagues in Europe, and he's not been a problem settling into Jim Goodwin's side. He's already been made sort of standing captain when Ross Docherty wasn't fit as well. So, and he's been a goal threat. Now, he had a free kick scored for his first goal. He then, against Ross County, nice arrival into in the box to find a bit of space and score the goal up at Dingwall. He also scored in the Premier Sports Cup. So this is a guy who I think is making a very early impact, and it's 12-1 elsewhere. Now, he's been substituted in, I think, the majority of his games, I think 6 out of 7. So that's been around the 78 to 82 minute mark. So perhaps not go first and last goal scorer for this one, but the one I fancied was each way at 22-1. Bet365 pay unlimited amount of goal scorers, so you would get your each way money even if he's not the first goal scorer. But that 22-1 would be appealing, and hopefully Babunski can prey on the nervous atmosphere that may be at play at Tynecastle on Sunday afternoon. Final game to look at in Scottish Premiership, Kilmarnock against Hibs. Great Kilmarnock effort in Europe again, just coming up short. I know you were there on Thursday night, Mark. They've been on the drift, probably because of those exertions. The aggregate score for Kelly games on Sundays after those games is 10-0 against them. So do you suspect this is a decent chance for Hibs to get their season, the league season, off to a winning start finally?
Absolutely. I think they were 17 to 10. Certainly they were 17 to 10. They showed signs in the second half last week against Dundee. They're starting to gel a little bit. They'd obviously had a pretty torrid start to the season. I was there on Thursday night. Kelly put absolutely everything into it. They were playing against a really good team who qualified from the Champions League group stages last season. They put everything into it. They could possibly even have won if things had fallen for them, but I mean, the effort they put in, you wonder how much that's taken out of them. It has been proved so many times, not just with Kelly, but with plenty of other Scottish teams. When they play in Europe, they tend to put so much effort into it that they're exhausted by the time they play on Sunday. It's not clicked for Kelly this season so far. I know manager Derek McKenna said that he wasn't too concerned about that because they can make up points as the season goes on. But, they don't seem to have quite the same, thrust that they had last season. And I think it's taken a lot out of them. It wouldn't be a massive surprise to me if Hibs could go there and get a win at a decent price as well. So I wouldn't put anyone off backing Hibs on Sunday.
Yeah, I think you can still get something like 7-4 about Hibs doing that. So if you're prepared to trust Hibs at that price, then that would be the way to go. I would presume Kilmarnock would get better as the season goes on, but this might be the time to continue opposing them early on in the season. Mark, looking further down the Scottish League's Championship, what have you found in the second tier for us this weekend, if anything?
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting games. Falkirk would go 501 days unbeaten in the league if they can avoid defeat at Morton, and they're again just full of confidence. So that wouldn't be a big surprise. I saw Livingston, Morton. I was there on Saturday for the record. Quite impressed with Livingston. Really, Stevie May, I think, would be a terrific signing for them. I would have liked to back them this week. Just a bit short, 13 to 8 at Wraith. I was hoping for a bit of a better price. I think Livingston will go a bit under the radar. I think we'll be up there at the end of the season. Partick, the other Glasgow derby, Partick Thistle, Queen's Park, that's an interesting one. Thistle have just not got going at all so far this season. They've been a real disappointment. And the other interesting thing is United away at Dunfermline. Scott Brow's team, they're now favourites to win the league. 17 to 20, I think, to win, and I can see a lot of money for that. Dunfermline had all their off-park problems at East End Park, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's a bit of money for United to win that on Saturday too.
Okay, if you don't mind taking the odds on aways, then Ayr certainly look to be flying at the moment. There was one mention I just wanted to flag up, and maybe a bit of an odd one given Falkirk have made such a cracking start to the season. I just thought that Morton at home at Capello of bigger than 3-1. I saw a 16-5 available against Falkirk. Now Morton are a limited side, but they play really tough. Down at Capello can turn it into a bit of a dogfight, and I'm not 100% sure that's going to suit John McGlynn's side. Are we really impressed? And I am with Falkirk long term this season on the anti-post markets. I'll be really impressed if they can come away from that test at Capello with 3 points. But Morton have got 3 draws already this season. Could be another one, but I just thought the odds on them to win at 60-5 was quite big. Mark, I mentioned perhaps somewhere in League 1 and 2 as well. There's a couple of games just catch your eye before we leave Scotland. Yeah,
I'm quite intrigued with the game in Methil in League 2 East Fife against Clyde. Clyde were everyone's favourites for the title, everyone thought, because of the way they ended last season. Ian McCall they've strengthened in that as well. For whatever reason, they've not got going this season at all. They've struggled. I don't see it with their best team being played. East Fife have been flying recently as well. Dick Campbell there has got Nathan Austin scoring a lot of goals for them. So 75 East Fife, I thought might be a wee solid shout for that. So wouldn't put anyone off for going for that at New Bayview.
Okie doke, off to England now. Some cracking games in the Premier League. Arsenal, Brighton, lunchtime on Saturday. Then on to Newcastle and Spurs. Manchester United against Liverpool on Sunday. But Mark, you're drawn to taking advantage of the continued woes of a team you opposed last week successfully, and that's Everton.
Yeah, just I guess there was, I said, there's most weeks I just think they seem to be really struggling. I mean, you probably saw that video of the players going on the train back home. The punters are not a happy lot. Again, it's almost a bit like Hearts actually. They're playing Bournemouth at home at Goodison Saturday. I think you'll get 64. I think on Bournemouth. Yeah, could have won last week against Newcastle as well. I think Everton always not right on and off the pitch with them. I think they really struggle. It's the last season at Goodison. It'd be terrible if they actually got relegated when it came to that. But I think Bournemouth are a nice wee shout for this one.
Okay, Bournemouth available at 8-5 to triumph at Goodison with William Hill. I'm going to pick one out in the Championship, the English second tier, and I'd like to get with an ex-Hibernian manager for this game. Now, Paul Heckingbottom took over at Preston North End last week after an 8-month break from the game. He was last seen with Sheffield United, of course, and I'd rather concentrate on what the job he managed to do in the Championship rather than in the Premier League. He got them promoted with 91 points the last time he was operating in the second tier, and I don't see any more classic an example of a dressing room or a club just needing a change of direction or a change of voice around the place from Ryan Lowe, who did a decent enough job, got them to mid-tables, but mid-table finishes for 3 years in a row. But clearly towards the end of last season, they'd had enough. I think they lost the last 5 games, failed to score a goal, and the same problems resurfaced straight away this season. First 2 league games, 2 defeats, 2-0 and 3-0. Again, no goals. All of a sudden, Lowe leaves, in comes Paul Heckingbottom, 1-0 victory over Luton last week in the league to get him off to a flyer, and they had a comfortable 5-0 success at Harrogate in midweek in the Carabao Cup. Now, they're going to be playing a lot better football under Heckingbottom, produced a nice style in the Championship with Sheffield United last time out. Now, they go to Oxford, and I've nothing against them as such. I do like Des Buckingham as a boss, but bottom line is they did scrape into the playoffs last year in League One to get themselves promoted. Did great to do so. Got off to a pleasing start in the Championship, but they've since lost 3 straight after beating Norwich on the first day of the season and then beating Peterborough in the Carabao Cup. And I just think they'll be up against it, and they're a team that's going to finish in the bottom, probably the bottom 8 or so. So with Preston beginning to show signs of recovery under Heckingbottom, I want to be with them at Oxford at a price of 2-1. Now, before I go on to my second pick from the English lower leagues, I just want to mention a bit of an angle that might be worth punters looking at, and it's the teams that have scored a giant-killing success in the Carabao Cup in midweek and might just suffer a bit of mental letdown. Now, 2 sides won penalty shootouts. Now, they didn't go to extra time. The games go straight to penalty shootouts at that stage of the season, so it's not quite as stamina sapping as it looked, but there's still a case for saying that AFC Wimbledon, who knocked out Ipswich on penalties, might, and also got a great draw again in the draw in the next round to play Newcastle, might just struggle early on against Fleetwood, who are 12-5 to win the AFC Wimbledon. Might just be one worth looking at. And the other one is Barrow, who defeated Derby on penalty kicks and got themselves a trip to Stamford Bridge in the next round. They travel to Harrogate, who are 5-2 at home in that one. It's just a couple of ones to point us to look out for there. A couple of teams that might have had their minds elsewhere in the last few days. So the final game to look at is Bromley against Crewe, and that's in League 2. Arguably, Bromley are unexposed at League 2 level, having got promoted last season, since they started off with 2 impressive wins at Harrogate and at AFC Wimbledon. And the third game is one that you could probably put a line through. They were playing at Graham Alexander's Bradford, who are my selection, anti-post selection at 14-1 to win the title. And they had a man sent off after only 8 minutes there last week. Ashley Charles was red carded, and Bradford coasted to a 3-1 victory after that. And they Bromley take on Crewe at home on Saturday. And There's no sign to me that Crewe have recovered from their defeat at Wembley in last year's playoffs. Got off to a terrible start, haven't scored a goal in 3 games. They've got a draw to show for their efforts, 0-0 against Swindon. I don't think that form amounts to much at all, and I think the new boys Bromley could probably go very well at home to Crewe, and that's my final selection from the English leagues. Before we ask Mark for his best bet of the weekend, I just want to touch on the fact Scotland are obviously back in action next Thursday against Poland. We're in Nations League action. Portugal are the 8-13 favourites to win a section featuring Scotland, Poland and Croatia. There's no odds available yet for that, but I just wanted to ask Mark if there was any scope you thought for Scotland doing better than they did at Euro 2024 when taking on these very high-class teams in the Nations League. And is that 8-13 Portugal probably fair against 3 teams that they really should be better than over the long stretch of the campaign?
Well, we could hardly do worse, could we? So the only bit of optimism you would say is that we're playing Poland, who I think they were the first team knocked out of the Euros. So you could put an argument sort of 23rd against 24th teams in the Euros during the summer. We saw the squad this week. We're severely hampered yet again with injuries. Steve Clarke was quite defiant about he wouldn't change much over the summer. There's very little to be optimistic about if you're a Scotland fan. You know, with so many punters, including myself, over there, spent a lot of money, and it was just it was a huge letdown, and a lot of that, in Scotland fans' eyes anyway, are down to the manager and his negative tactics. There's no getting away from that. Playing, 3 really good teams in this, certainly 2 good teams in Croatia and Portugal. You'd expect Portugal to comfortably win the group. We have to do well at Hampden. That's the real crux of the matter here. So, I mean, we need to get off to a win on Thursday against the Poles. They can't be looking good about themselves either going into this game. As I said, after a poor Euros, we've still got Lewandowski playing in that as well. But Scotland-wise, I say it's hard to be optimistic after the summer we've had. I wait to see. They say the prices aren't up yet, but I don't know. I mean, you wouldn't be diving in a Scotland victory. Let's put it that way.
No, and I think having spoken to a couple of ex-Polish players in the last week about their chances, they're not too confident either. They after their Euros campaign and going into this one, it's also possible that Croatia are going to go through a bit of a transitional period as well. So I actually wonder if that 8-13, 4-6 about Portugal winning our Nations League group might actually be a decent bet. It's arguable that that could have been shorter. Anyway, let's finish up, Mark, by just throwing the spotlight onto your best bet for the weekend.
Yeah, just going to go with Aberdeen at 21-20 with Ladbrokes. We've discussed the reasons why, but I think that'll go off a lot shorter by the time it kicks off on Saturday night.
Well, that's going to make Aberdeen, if that happens, make them feel very good about themselves going into the international break. And hopefully, if you can snap up that 21-20 for Ladbrokes and Aberdeen do the business for you, you will feel likewise. Thanks very much to Mark. That's us for this week. Look forward to catching up next week. Good luck this weekend to one and all.